the words, quote, from the river to the sea, close quote, which you have to look at every time you walk past a certain office door and which is hurtful to you. And you're saying people can say that they mean different things by that, like democracy or peace or legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people. But at bottom, it really means destruction of the state of Israel. So the analogy I want to give is the words, all lives matter, because all lives do matter. But those words, all lives matter, came to mean for a lot of people, Black lives don't matter, because the spirit that was brought to saying those words, all lives matter, was in reaction to the assertion, Black lives matter. One theater of discussion is campuses in the United States and activism that has anti-Semitic flavor to it, and it's certainly anti-Zionist flavor to it, and that's critical of Israel. That's one thing. Another thing is about the day after, about the conflict. I was born in 1948, and you know what I'm saying? I'm 75, going to be 76 years old, man.
I'm 53, so I'm a spring chicken.
Israel has been at war my entire life.
Yeah.
So, you say you can't imagine Israel not existing. I certainly don't want to imagine Israel not existing, but I do want to take note of the fact that Israel has been at war my entire life.
Yeah.
So this is not going away. This is a festering, deep, profound fissure that we're confronting here. Some of those people waving those protest signs on the anti-Israel thing are saying they want one person, one vote between the river and the sea. They're basically saying democracy, quote unquote. I understand the arguments against that. I'm not trying to propose it. I'm not proposing it, everybody. Okay, I'm not proposing it. Is that the end of Israel? Is that the same thing as wiping out the Jews?
That's a great question. And actually, interestingly, before becoming the director of graduate studies, the graduate students' offices had that in the window from the river to the sea with the Palestinian flag. So
in your face.
So I emailed before I started as director. Actually, no, I was director. I emailed some of the grad students, the leaders of the grad student council, and I said, that sign, I've looked at it now this semester, and it's really painful to me seeing it. And I would love to have a discussion about it, right? And here's something that I've come to understand, and I think probably others have too, and that is my graduate students actually do not see it as the destruction of Israel, nor anti-Semitic. For them, it is like a slogan about peace, a slogan about bringing humanity to the folks of Palestine. It's not about anti-Jewish hatred to my graduate students, and I shared with them, my perspective, which is inescapably that those words are about the destruction of Israel. And, as I learned, they were a part of the far right in Israel in terms of their view of endless war and destruction of Palestine, one state Israel. So, but more painful to me is understanding that those words were forged in an obviously anti-Jewish sentiment, right? I mean, going back to, I think, the Muslim Brotherhood, and then, onwards, to the Hamas or factions of Hamas and some of these other extremist terrorist groups. So I think still espouse that meaning behind it. So to me, like, the kind of like contortions of mind one has to take to understand those words as anything different, it's really difficult for me personally. At the same time, again, that in talking to them, it helped me to understand that that's not for them what it means.
Okay, so I want to give you an analogy and see how you react. You're talking about the words, quote, from the river to the sea, close quote, which you have to look at every time you walk past a certain office door, and which is hurtful to you. And you're saying people can say that they mean different things by that, like democracy or peace or legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people, but at bottom, it really means the destruction of the state of Israel. So the analogy I want to give is the words, all lives matter. All lives matter. Because all lives do matter. But those words, all lives matter, came to mean for a lot of people, Black lives don't matter.
Yeah.
Because the spirit that was brought to saying those words, all lives matter, was in reaction to the assertion, Black lives matter.
Yeah.
You know, people were saying what it really means. And there's no way you can use those words, all lives matter, and have it not mean Black lives don't matter. This feels to me to be something like that. Like the words have taken on a life of their own and have a meaning that's somehow independent of the intent of the person who speaks them. Because I can see an argument, I want to know how you react to this, from a certain point of view, which says the de facto state that governs the lives of people between the river and the sea is Greater Israel. It's Israel and the occupation. Some people are citizens, and some of them are Palestinian Arabs who are citizens of the state of Israel. Other people are occupied. They're not citizens. And that's a police state on them. What I want is this person's speech is all those people to have equal political rights. That would be a legitimate, fair outcome. And they're going to use words like apartheid and all that. And I'm not trying to provoke you. I'm just trying to say that's what they might mean by saying from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea, I want everybody to have the same political rights. There's a de facto state, and yet some people are set aside, so to speak, and not, they're militarily occupied. Now, that's a legitimate position. A person could take that position and try to defend that position. There's nothing anti-Jewish about that position.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where my graduate students are. It's end the occupation. It's genuine freedom, democracy for all Palestinian people. And I mean, that's an aspiration for me that I hope. I mean, Yitzhak Rabin is like such a great hero to me, but it took tremendous compromise. And then, of course, he was assassinated. So I agree that I'm actually somewhat sympathetic to that argument. At the same time, though, that I think there are obviously many people in Hamas, some of the other factions of these groups that are terrorist in their beliefs. It does mean for them the destruction of Israel. So I am open to the argument, and I understand it. And I think occupation, to be totally honest, as a small d Democrat, capital I independent for a long time, I was very critical of Netanyahu and the occupation. I thought I think the occupation went too far and has gone too far. I wish there could be something beyond that in the future. I would love to see that. So I actually share that, but I cannot personally agree that it is a shared belief by those who were involved, obviously, in the events of October 7th. And also, it was horrific seeing people dancing in the streets around the world after it. I mean, where's the basic sense of human dignity and humanity after such a horrific event? But of course, it's rooted in a long history, one you're more familiar with than I am, because this war has gone on and on and on endlessly. There's been dancing in the streets after slaughtering of Israel.
I think what some of my Jewish friends would say is it's Jew hatred. That's what the dancing in the street is about. They're celebrating the killing of Jews.
I believe that. I mean, I don't understand how, again, so that's right. Like, I want to hear the argument as to why that isn't Jew hatred and espousing a belief in the destruction of Israel. I'm open to the argument. I don't think there is any reasonable argument that that's that somehow doesn't mean.
Yeah, I'm commenting as an outsider because I'm not Jewish. I'm not embedded within the conflict. The question of survival, life and death. You have enemies, and then you have to kill them, and then you have to demonize them, and that could go in both directions actually.
Death.
And at the end of the day, we got a smoldering heap of dead bodies. And is there a cosmic justice? Is there a righteousness that's above this conflict? So the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the Nakba, dispossession, the scattering of these people, they're refugees. Again, I understand that this is a complicated history. I'm not going to try to sum it up in one word, but just to say that opens up this fissure that creates this, who are those 2.5 million people? How did they get there? Where did they come from? So they talk about the doctrines in the school books of the kids in Gaza about hating Jews, and I don't doubt it for a minute. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that they are indoctrinating their kids to hate Jews. And I think a fair-minded person could conclude, based on the totality of the destruction of Gaza, that there might have insinuated itself a small amount of anti-Palestinian hatred and enmity in the actions of some of the Israeli actors who wrought that destruction. That's certainly hard to rule it out. Hard to rule it out.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say one thing, Glenn. Like, as a graduate student, maybe even in college, but as a graduate student, so many heated arguments with family members who, to me, were Islamophobic, and it was like just all Arabs. They want to kill us, and so I mean, I think that is also a big challenge on the other side. I mean, for Jews, maybe it's generational. I don't know, but
let me ask you.
I'm certainly not a believer that all Palestinians espouse the radical jihadist beliefs of these factions of Hamas and some of these other terrorist organizations. And yeah, again, I have to be an idealist with the hope that there can be. I mean, I have memories of Rabin and Palestinian Americans who were getting ready to move back. Right? I mean, it was, I don't know how close it was, but it was a lot closer than any other time I can remember. And gosh, I would love to see that. But yeah, I mean, if family members were here now, they would be cutting me off and saying that will never happen, and they want to kill all the Jews. Us and them. Kinds of narratives that we can't have any productive discussions about this topic.